I'll just run you through a very high level, what a pitch deck could look like. Like I said, some of you are really advanced in this, whereas some of you may not have done this before. So it's just a little bit of a teaser to show you sort of what this can look like. First is the your title slide. Now you might think like this isn't really that important, but it is a really important first slide for your pitch, because it does two things. One is it sets credibility up. So if someone receives your pitch, if your first slide looks horrible, then you're setting a bad example right from the very start. But it's also really important to set really clear context for what the pitch is going to be about. What you don't want to happen is people going into that sort of first couple of slides of your pitch and not knowing what you do. You need to set that context right up front. So as an example here, a fictitious company called HarvestLink. What the concept for this is electric autonomous aircraft for crop spraying. Like I said, it's not fancy, it's not a tagline. It is just a really clear statement that sets the context for exactly what your company does. The second slide is where you talk about the problem. Now, this is one of the most critical slides in the whole pitch deck, because it's the whole reason that your company exists. So whilst it might look simple, it can take a long time to really nail this. And I've seen probably thousands of pitches, and 95% or more of them get this completely wrong. So what I've done here is just outline a very basic idea of what that problem slide could look like. Now, you might want to tease this out, like this is the core part of the story you're telling around your business. This can be 2, 3, or even 4 slides when you're building that story up. But, this is sort of the basics that you need to cover. One thing I will say too is that this is a pitch deck that is sort of tailored towards what an investor might want to see, but you would create versions of this if you're pitching to customers or to partners or to peers. So you can, down the track, not now, but down the track, you can create different versions depending on the audience that you have. And similarly, if you're up on stage presenting to a room full of people, you might want to take some of the detail out and make it a really sort of visual, high-level pitch as well. But this is a starting point for investors, and this is sort of what those other pitches will form from. So then, once you sort of seed, I guess, the conversation with the problem that you're solving, that's when you can go into the solution. And this is really the hero of your startup. So in this case, it is, let me go back for a sec. So the problem we're solving here is that traditional crop spraying methods are no longer efficient enough to meet the demands of modern farms. And then the solution, electric autonomous aircraft precision crop spraying over any distance. So you can see it sets up the problem and then immediately goes into the hero of that problem that you've set up. Again, this is just a really simple solution slide. When you've got a more complex solution, you can add a couple of slides that actually go into more technical details of how it works, but it should always start with this really high level to give people that context of the solution that you're providing. Then looking at market traction and validation. Now, this is one of the, after you've set up that problem solution, going into sort of the traction that you've received and some evidence that this is actually a thing that is valuable. When you start out, you may not have any traction here. So it might be a number of customers you've spoken to, a quote from a potential supplier. It can be any form of validation that you've done in market. But as soon as you start getting sort of pilots in place or partners in place, this is the slide where you really showcase that evidence that what you're doing is gaining some traction, and that there is value in the market for it. Then from that, you sort of can lead into the revenue model or the business model, which is basically how you're going to make money. Again, you may have some very high-level ideas of this at the start, but as you get more advanced, you can get right down into sort of the nitty-gritty to unit economics and things like that. But again, at the start, it can be very high-level and just your hypothesis on what this is as well. So it's like how you intend to make money, what pricing you're thinking, what sort of pricing model you're thinking of, and then sort of what some of the costs might look like. Uh, Moving on from that, then it becomes the market opportunity. So this is the slide where you really want to sort of show, look, we're starting here. We're starting in this sort of small niche market, but there is actually this big potential out there that we could go after one day. So this is, like a lot of this is pretty sort of rudimentary early on, but you can start to gather sort of information and intelligence onto what those markets look like. And as you get more information in, you can start to really refine what these numbers are. So if you haven't come across these before, yeah, the TAM, SAM, and SOM. So SOM is serviceable, obtainable market, which is really the first handful of customers that you're going to be going for, or that first market segment. Then serviceable, attainable market is then if you could get everyone in that market, what does that look like in Australia or globally? And then if you can get everyone in that market, then there are obviously adjacent markets that you could also go into that might not be core to start with, but you might go into later on, and that is your total addressable market. Now, there's lots of different ways to slice and dice this, and your VBs will sort of help you through some of this stuff if this is something you need help with. But yeah, there's a few different ways you can do this. But what this does is just show what the potential is for your venture. Then your go-to-market strategy is this really, well, you've shown sort of this potential progression of market opportunity, but how are you going to go about getting that? So it's what are you doing to get your first customers? What are you doing to get that next run of customers? And then as you scale up, what do you intend to do to sort of capture that larger market? It's very high level. This stuff tends to change quite dramatically as your venture progresses, but it's just about getting sort of that initial thinking down. And then as your thinking does change, sort of updating this to your current thinking so it remains current. Then sort of a competitive advantage slide, which is just looking at, well, who are your big competitors and basically how you're going to compete against them. Some investors really want to see competitive advantages like, what's to stop someone from taking market share off you. If you look at Google search, for example, they continually develop their search algorithms. So anyone entering the market today will have a lot of work to do to catch up. But by the time they catch up, then their search algorithm, Google search algorithm, would have already gone to the next level. So it's starting to have a think about, how you can create that sustainable advantage in the market. Again, comes down the track, but you can start thinking about that stuff now, and just sort of having a look at what other competitors are out there in the market and how you might compete against them. Your team slide, this one's pretty simple, just who you are and some high level points to build your credibility. Now, I see a lot of people put a lot of information on this slide, and it actually does them a disservice because this slide is not about the sum of everything that you've done in your career. It's about the average of everything you show on the slide. So really just pick the 1 to 3 sort of really sort of valuable things that's important for people to know about you, and then you can leave all the other stuff for other conversations. And then your roadmap. So this isn't a product roadmap per se, but this is more your venture roadmap. What fundraising have you done, and what is your ask? What you're asking for. Now, this again could be split out into sort of multiple slides once you get a bit more advanced. But at a really high level, sort of at an early stage, it's like, what does the next 12 months look like for you? What are you aiming to achieve? What is your current fundraising plan, and how do you want to use those funds? And then the ask from the audience. If it's an investor you're meeting, the ask is obviously we're seeking investment, but the ask could also be we're looking for partnerships, we're looking for introductions to customers. So you can sort of, depending on the audience that you're pitching to, sort of tailor this little bit as you go.